Hey, you! Yeah, you there! Have you ever wanted to be rich? Have you ever wanted to not put in much effort? Have you ever wanted to not know much about the economy or play the game very much yet have fat stacks of cash? Do you not have a credit card? Will your mummy not pay for gems? Then for you, I've got the ultimate farm of ultimate destiny. Exclusive to Heart of Thorns. Now you can be rich too by just getting a little bit lucky with an awesome, badass new loot drop that we've never seen before. So today I want to talk about my farm for this item. It's pretty cool. It's pretty exclusive, prestigious. You've got a very low chance of finding it in most areas, as I've come to find. I've had 11 so far throughout my entire time playing Heart of Thorns. But the main way I would suggest you farm it, guys, is go to Verdant Brink. In Verdant Brink, there is a mechanic where, as you complete various events, you can get packed crowbars. Now, these crowbars can be used to pry open airship cargo. And every now and then, if you're lucky, you might just find a Maguma Bow. Just look at this thing. Everything about it just breathes wealth. As you mouse over, you'll see that it's a rare quality item. That means it's got yellow text. You can actually slot this into your gear, guys, and get better stats. This is the new Commander's, I believe, stat set, which gives you power, precision, a little bit of boon duration, and toughness. Some may consider it the new Knight's set. Could see value in raids. What you might not actually realize is because this thing offers 4 stats instead of just 3. Overall, you're getting more bang for your buck, just like you get a lot more stats when you go for Celestial. So this is a really fantastic item. And you might be thinking, okay, Wooden Potatoes, all right, how do I get rich from this? I'm looking on the trading post, sell on trading post, and I'm seeing they're not actually worth too much money. Well, you're right. But being rich, guys, isn't about having a lot of gold in your in-game bank account. It's about being happy. That's what wealth brings you, happiness. And just looking at this icon, just looking at this this item here, a Maguma Burl. A burl being a rounded, knotty growth on a tree used to specially handcrafted objects and veneers. I don't know, can't you just look at that and feel happy? Truly, the happiest man is the wealthiest man. And the more of these Maguma Burls you have, the happier you will be. Okay, guys, all right. I can't keep up that joke for too much long. Today, I just wanted to talk a little bit. I've wanted to do this video for a while about a reference that's gone in-game that, yes, is apparently a reference to me, Wooden Potatoes. Of course, everything I just said was a bunch of crap. This is a fairly mediocre item. Hopefully, we do see Commander stats become a thing at some point. But I must be honest, this is a really surreal, cool thing for me. And I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. Funnily enough, I've had more mails on this rather than issues with the story, rather than issues with fractals, rather with unhappy people about the economy or happy people about anything that's going on in game. More than any other message since Heart of Thorns has come out, in that little mailbox in the top left-hand side of my game, I've been getting mails of people telling me about the Maguma Burl. I haven't talked about it officially on the channel, and yes, I am aware of its existence. I am aware there is a reference to Wooden Potatoes in the game now, and you guys should really stop sending me this, despite the joke I'm making here that you won't get rich selling these or investing in these, but they are worth a fair amount of money. You know, if I'd accepted all these Maguma Burls of people, I would have had closing in on hundreds of them by now, and, you know, we're starting to talk real money at that point, so you guys don't have to send me anymore. I do find it kind of funny, though. I must say, the first time I got one of these Maguma Burls, they are sort of rare, and they aren't, you know, something you can dedicate it. Fine. I actually found one really quickly after first going into Verdant Brink. About 10 minutes after the expansion came out, it must have been, I got this drop, and I must be honest, I didn't even remotely comprehend it could have anything to do with me. It wasn't until hours and hours later when there was a Reddit thread that had gone up where not only were people talking about this, the fact this reference was in game, but it was like really highly upvoted and discussed, and a dev, Isaiah Carrate, had even talked about it. This was a dev that I'd met back earlier in the year with one of the early Heart of Thorns press events, and he actually told me a story about how he with his kids had been on a beach, I believe it was, and one of his kids had found some driftwood, picked it up, showed it to him. This kid, knowing nothing about his job or knowing nothing about Guild Wars 2, and said to Izzy, one of these devs, said, "Hey, this thing looks like a wooden potato." And it was just the weirdest moment for him because he knew that, like, one of the YouTubers for the game he worked on was called Wooden Potato. He even said that he kind of wanted to keep it and maybe send it to me somehow. And apparently someone somewhere there at the company ended up putting a reference in. I'm really happy about it. It's really cool. I just regret I didn't notice it until other people were telling me. In fact, I must be 100% honest. When I first got the item and I moused over it, I thought, that's kind of a weird looking icon. That doesn't look like that fits in Guild Wars 2 100%. It was only a brief little thing. It's like some massive thing I critiqued or whatever. And then I was like, okay, that's cool. I deposited and moved on. And only later I realized, oh my god, this is a reference to my channel. In case you guys don't actually know, looking on screen right now, the art for my YouTube channel that most people obviously would recognize me as these days was not something I had done for a really long time. It wasn't until just before Guild Wars 2 came out that I actually got this thing. It was a friend of mine who had kindly made me this art. But before that point, my channel had actually not used it at all. I had simply gone to Google and Googled for something saying wooden potatoes, and that's what you can see on the screen now. That's what it was originally based on. And looking at the Guild Wars 2 Maguma Burl item now, you can see it's very similar to that original icon I used to use. In fact, you can still see an icon very similar to this in my intro every day when it scrolls on. But yeah, my initial reaction was that, to not even realize, while you had other people like Shin here.
Maguma Burl? Oh. That's it. Tell me that doesn't look like Wooden Potatoes logo. Tell me that doesn't look like Wooden Potatoes logo.
Realizing it straight away. Whoops to me. To talk a little bit about references in Guild Wars 2 and the history of them, when Fractals originally came out, quite a high-profile release, of course, one of the bosses in it was Commander Dolphy. So Dolphy, you should probably all know about, kind of aggregates community efforts to put guides up online. So people will write guides about classes, people will find out about new achievements and stuff, and at Dolphy they'll kind of combine it all together, put in a lot of effort, put it up, and it's kind of like the go-to place you go to for very quick guides on how things work in the game as patches come out and stuff. And Dolphy got a reference really early. Actually, Dolphy got a reference before I was even really aware it was a super great resource to use. Around that point, people started asking, hey, should Wooden Potatoes get a reference as well? And there's been generally, over the years, since that point, quite a lot of discussion about it. Unnecessary amounts of discussion, in my opinion, quite heated discussion at that. You know, some people really fighting for, oh, Wooden Potatoes should have a reference, and other people saying, no, it's a slippery slope, everyone and their dog's gonna want to have a reference and it's gonna ruin the game. But the game isn't totally alien to this idea. Guild Wars actually does have a fairly rich tradition, shall we say, of putting references to community members in their games. It's just you as an average player tend to not realize that fact because they put references in to family members, to QA testers, and people generally sociable with the devs. So, back around the launch of Guild Wars 2 as well, another good example here is there was a YouTuber named Kai Dream. She's still a fairly active YouTuber, actually. She was doing Guild Wars 2 content at the time. Nothing particularly major, you know, not to be mean or anything, but she ended up getting a reference in game. And the simple fact of this was because she'd been talking to some devs directly, she'd been sociable, she'd been personable, and as a result of that, one of the bosses in SCP-1 ended up being named after her. It's really as simple as that, you know, like, you don't have to look much further into it. It's just devs being nice to the people that they're familiar with. Me, on the other hand, despite any community pull I might have, despite how long I may have been doing this or how much effort I've put in over the years, I'm a pretty antisocial guy. My interactions directly with the devs, even after becoming an ArenaNet partner, have been very limited. In fact, early in the year was the most I'd ever talked to the devs or put myself out there at all. And so it was never really a question of, to me, why doesn't Wooden Potatoes have a references? Because, you know, I'm just kind of this guy on the internet that talks about their game a lot. Is fairly critical at times at that, you know, like they've done this wonderful thing here and then I put out a fairly brutal roasting of a video talking about their story at the same time. You know, there's not very much personable here. There's no face cam here, there's no direct interaction, and that's just kind of the way that things have gone. But this is cool. This is really cool. This is like a super highlight of Heart of Thorns for me that I know basically nobody else in that goddamn world is going to appreciate on the same level. You know, I can't help but look back to the Guild Wars 1 days, where a lot of just heavy speculators in the lore community got a ton of references put in with the Nightfall expansion. There's a big lore library in Varby, and many of the NPCs you can interact with there are various tweaks on community members' names. People who used to speculate about the lore of the franchise long before I ever did. They all ended up having references in game. I spoke to a specific QA guy who said, hey, yeah, my name is X. I think he was like a German guy. He was like, this is my name. And yeah, I've got lots of references. And he kind of pointed out that over Prophecies, Factions, and Nightfall, this dude had something like 3 different characters all referencing him. They were just slight tweaks on his name. And, you know, we as average players just don't tend to realize this kind of thing. But I've known it's been there. I think back to GW1 as well. And the super rare minis and like Gale Grey having her own unique mini, and always thinking to myself, somewhere in the back of my head, wouldn't it be cool to have like a unique item, something in the game that actually references me? But you know, back then I was a teenager, it was a game, it was a weird thought that anything I ever did could possibly influence anything ever. And these days, you know, that perspective's a little different, and it's a really, really bizarre thought. But there you go, guys. It's something pretty interesting you may not have realized about Heart of Thorns that's been going on. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll get back to some more specific Heart of Thorns stuff tomorrow. Catch you next time, guys.